Robert Bolt's A Man for All Seasons is a historical drama that follows the moral struggle of Sir Thomas More, a principled English statesman who refuses to compromise his conscience despite immense political pressure during the reign of King Henry VIII. The play explores themes of integrity, power, corruption, and the costs of staying true to one's beliefs in a world built on compromise. The story opens in early 16th century England, where Sir Thomas More is serving as Lord Chancellor, admired for his honesty, learning, and moral uprightness. He is respected across the realm as a man of integrity and principle. The narrator-like, common man, introduces the audience to the social and political landscape of Tudor England, foreshadowing the conflicts to come. At this time, King Henry VIII wants to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, because she has not produced a male heir. The king desires to marry Anne Boleyn, hoping for a legitimate son to secure the Tudor line. However, the Pope refuses to grant the annulment, and Henry seeks support from his advisors and influential statesmen to achieve his objective by other means. Cardinal Wolsey, the powerful but pragmatic Lord Chancellor, urges More to support the king's divorce. Wolsey argues that political necessity must sometimes outweigh moral or religious objections. More, however, refuses to endorse the divorce because it contradicts his conscience and Catholic doctrine. This disagreement exposes their fundamentally different philosophies. Shortly afterward, Wolsey falls from power and dies in disgrace. Because of his reputation for honesty, More is appointed the new Lord Chancellor, placing him directly in the path of Henry's escalating conflict with Rome. Meanwhile, Richard Rich, an ambitious young man who desires power and influence, seeks More's patronage. More sees that Rich is morally weak and warns him against entering political life, advising him instead to become a teacher. Rich, however, craves status and is willing to sacrifice integrity to obtain it. More's refusal to support the king soon alienates him from influential figures such as Thomas Cromwell, who begins working to engineer More's downfall. The conflict escalates when Henry VIII himself visits More, hoping to win his support. Henry attempts to charm and pressure More into accepting the divorce. Although More remains respectful, he refuses to change his position. Henry grows increasingly frustrated, feeling betrayed by a man he once admired. As the king breaks away from the Catholic Church and declares himself supreme head of the Church of England, More quietly resigns as Lord Chancellor, hoping that silence will protect him from having to oppose the king openly. However, More's enemies, particularly Cromwell, are determined to force a public declaration of loyalty. Parliament passes the Act of Supremacy and the Act of Succession, requiring all subjects to swear an oath recognizing Henry as the head of the church and acknowledging the legitimacy of his marriage to Anne Boleyn. More refuses to sign the oath. Importantly, he also refuses to openly explain his reasons, hoping that silence will prevent legal action against him. But silence is interpreted as opposition. As pressure mounts, More's wife, Alice, and daughter, Margaret, plead with him to submit and save himself. More loves his family deeply, but he cannot violate his conscience. He insists that a person's soul is not worth compromising for political safety. More is eventually arrested and imprisoned in the Tower of London. His interrogators, Cromwell, Norfolk, and Archbishop Cranmer, attempt to extract a statement, but More remains firm, relying on the law to protect him. Cromwell, frustrated by More's silence, resorts to manipulation and deceit. He enlists Richard Rich, who, in exchange for a government post, agrees to lie about More. At More's trial, Rich perjures himself by claiming that More openly denied the king's authority over the church. This fabricated testimony secures a guilty verdict. The courtroom scene exposes the corruption and hypocrisy of the political system, contrasting sharply with More's steadfast honesty. Despite the unjust trial, More remains calm, dignified, and resolute. With the legal sentence pronounced, he finally speaks his mind openly. He declares that the king's actions, establishing himself as the head of the church, are against the laws of God and the unity of Christendom. His position is rooted in faith, law, and conscience, not political rebellion. More accepts his fate with grace, forgiving his accusers and remaining at peace with his convictions. The play concludes with More's execution. The common man returns to deliver the epilogue, commenting on the fate of the various characters after More's death. Cromwell rises in power, but eventually falls and is executed. Richard Rich becomes a wealthy statesman, but dies in obscurity. Meanwhile, More is remembered as a model of integrity, a man who chose moral truth over political expediency. In A Man for All Seasons, Bolt presents Thomas More as a hero defined not by ambition or achievement, but by the unwavering adherence to conscience. His willingness to sacrifice everything, position, comfort, family, and even life itself, reveals the profound cost of integrity in an age where survival depends on compromise. Through More's tragic struggle, the play raises enduring questions about loyalty, morality, and the ultimate responsibility each person bears to remain true to themselves.